Now we clean the spicy hot meatball. Today, Brody and I are working on a 1995 F355 GTS, one of my favorite Ferraris by far, but it does come with a few issues. The dashboards tend to crack, split, or peel. Of course, there are sticky buttons. How do you repair that? And this here, check this out. There are window etchings, huge in the glass. I gotta find out from Dominic what that's all about. We're gonna clean, polish, then take this thing for a ride. Today on this episode of Drive and Protect. Thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring this episode. More on this coming up. Based on the past few years of episodes, Dominic has a rather large collection of cars, most notably his Ferrari collection, many of which are yellow like this one. Now, in my opinion, this is the best of the best. In my mind, it's not so old that you can't drive it. It's not so new that you're driving, let's say, like a video game with no actual buttons. Goldilocks would approve of this porridge. It's just the right temperature. The Ferrari 355 was produced from 1994 to 1999, and it was based on the Ferrari 348, but with much greater performance, exterior upgrades, and most important to me, improved daily driving capabilities in different practical environments, not just the racetrack alone. It came with a 3.5-liter 5-valve, hence the name 355, V8, 6-speed, in this case manual, gated shifter, 3,300 pounds, and it produced 375 horsepower. This one in particular is a GTS, so it comes with the removable hardtop, which makes it sound so incredibly good as you're ripping through the gears. More on this later. Now, if we put the 355 side by side with its successor, the 360, you can quickly see that the 355's square, sort of angular body was completely revised to the rounded, more voluptuous fenders common in today's cars. For me, the 355 was the last of the perfect V8s. If you think I'm off base here or there's a more perfectly balanced Ferrari, let me know in the comments below. And make sure you hang out to the end of the episode because Dominic explains why this car has crazy big window etching on all the glass. Step one is to lift her up and pop the wheels off and give the underbelly a scrub. So a little bit of a backstory here as to why I love the 355 so much. So in 2007, I secretly drove a black 355 convertible from New York City all the way down to Washington, D.C., and then from D.C. back to New York City in one day. And I did that because I asked my soon-to-be father-in-law if I could marry his daughter. My girlfriend at the time, and now wife, had no idea that I spent 12 hours in the car that day, driving all the way down there, surprising my in-laws, getting the yes, and then driving all the way back. So the 355 holds an extra place in my memories. Next, Brody filled the foam cannon with ammo foam and coated the undercarriage before a healthy scrub down. With the paint now covered in foam, we added a few squirts to the wash bucket, some blue wash towels, and gently washed the paint. Squarespace gives people a powerful and beautiful online platform on which to create your very own website. Now what's really cool is you can connect with your audience and generate revenue through gated members-only content and manage your members, send email communications, and leverage audience insights all in one easy-to-use platform. Create a community on your Squarespace website with a fully integrated commenting system that supports threaded comments, replies, and likes. And you can use their powerful blogging tools to categorize, share, and schedule posts too. That smells good. Extend Squarespace's already powerful e-commerce capabilities with Squarespace extensions. Display posts from your social profiles and automatically push website content to your favorite social media channels so your followers can share it too, like this one here. Go to squarespace.com for your free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/ammonyc to save 10% off your first purchase of a domain or a website. With the paint now clean and dry, sadly, Brody's week-long trip to America has come to a close. So I asked him to sign my wall of fame before I dropped him back off at the airport, bound for the winter months of Sydney, Australia. Remember, if you need my brother from another country to detail your car in Sydney, Australia, make sure you visit ammonyc.au, click on the link, schedule a detail. He is an awesome, awesome guy and a great detailer. The next morning, I started polishing the scratches in the hood, and then I found this. Okay, at this point, I just finished polishing the hood, and of course, I found something really interesting and nerdy from a detailing perspective. Right around here, we have dieback. On both sides of the dieback is orange peel, which is kind of unique, indicating that there's probably likely some type of damage. I'm going to show you here on the board what it looks like from a side view, but essentially, I can't sand this down, or I don't want to sand it down for multiple reasons. One, I don't want to create a halo effect. Why? Because I felt the rest of the hood, and it doesn't look like the entire hood has been repainted in terms of clear coat. So that means it was a spot repair likely. And number two, it's a thing called margin of safety. If I were to potentially sand through this and make everything flat, which is a beautiful thing because the rest of the car is actually flat, I could potentially burn through what we call halo and create this round circle where the clear coat from the original paint meets the new spray. So I'm going to show you right here on the board what's actually happening. So this is a side view of what's going on the Ferrari paint here. This is the original clear coat on both sides, the black area. Then we have the orange peel from this spray or the respray. Here, this red area, that's likely going to be resin or Bondo or something to fill up the impact. And what happens is, over time, as it dries, it begins to pull downwards and inwards, and you can actually see that in indentations. It's very, very hard to see. It's what we call dieback. So it's starting to pull, and it's yanking the underneath layers, and then you can sort of see it indicated on top. In theory, I should be able to come in and sand this down with a thin film disc, no sweat, no problem. I can do that easily. The challenge is right here on these sides, where the new or the respray meets the original paint. We can get a thing called a halo effect. And what happens is you're going to see like this white outline that goes all the way around the affected area, meaning where they did the spot repair. And you're going to see it, and you're going to go, wow, wait a second, it doesn't look really good. And you're going to go in and polish it, and then it's going to go like this. Oh man, it still doesn't look good. I'm going to polish it. And you basically just keep doing this, and you're chasing your tail. So is it the end of the world? No. But in this particular case, as a professional detailer, I'm saying, you know what? I'm going to avoid this because I think the benefit of potentially taking this out could be to the detriment of creating halos. For the rest of the car, I used a straight cut waffle foam pad and exfoliate polish. Now, in my history, I've had the privilege of polishing hundreds and hundreds of Ferraris, and I can tell you that something was just different with this paint because of how hard it was. And sure enough, I found out later on with Dominic that this was a repaint since 1995, which explains a lot. However, what wasn't repainted were those little black piano accent pieces around the windows and the mirrors. These responded just like they always do. They're super soft and they're always swirled out. So first I used a 1-inch foam pad and I wasn't really happy with the results, then switched over to a wool pad for some extra cut. As you can see right here, all the deep scratches were gone, but the heavy cut swirls were installed in the process. Now, this is totally normal, so we just go in with a foam pad afterwards to remove the scratches that I just installed. But again, this area was original and super thin, so I got it back to about 80 to 85% perfected just to avoid any potential burn through. Same thing on the scratched up taillights and the black calipers as well. When it comes to the wheels, they weren't in desperate need of refinishing. In fact, they were actually in great shape, just a bit grimy, so I cleaned them up with Plum and our tools in preparation for the gelée coating a little bit later in the process. Up next was the engine. Now, because 355s are relatively exposed, I decided to avoid using water and a power wash or a hose, etc. So I just used frothy hoseless wash and the aerator to spray a lather of foam on the dirty parts and just scoop them up with a towel. This is the safest way to clean water-sensitive areas like engines and paint and wheels, or when you're traveling in drought areas, or when it's really cold like in winter and you put your hose away. It's incredibly versatile and lubricated to minimize potentially scratching the paint during the wash process. After the initial frothy clean, then I use the steamer to flush out any of the tight areas I missed by hand. With the engine all cleaned up and looking good, I focused on the interior. Okay, at this point in the process, we're working on the interior, and as I mentioned earlier, this is one of my favorite cars because of the interior. What I mean by that is it's not super old and it's not super new, it's right in between. It's kind of like the Porsche 964 for me. It just has that special feeling. This one in particular, 6-speed gated manual with the open top, so you can hear yourself ripping through the gears. Doesn't get any better than that. But with the good comes the bad. Of course, I'm talking about the sticky button issues. So let's quickly rewind and figure out why that happened. So in the early 90s, mid 90s, Ferrari's competing with lower end brands. And they figured out that, hey, people like to feel and sort of touch things that feel higher end. The problem was the chemistry behind it didn't allow it to be super soft and very durable at the same time. You add all that in with the fact that VOC compliance and all the issues that were going on, so they had to change the chemicals around. The short answer is they put this on there, it felt amazing, but it wasn't very strong. So if you had suntan lotion on, if you had bug spray on, if you were sweaty, etc., and kept touching the buttons, very quickly you'd get sticky, kind of gummy little buttons and doorknob and vents. They were all over the place because they wanted that to have a high-end feel. So what people would do, they would clean it, let's say with regular all-purpose cleaner or some sort of interior cleaner, wipe it with a towel and become even stickier. So that didn't work. I read a lot online and I see people are having success with taking isopropyl alcohol, a Q-tip or a swab, and kind of gently cleaning that off, but you are removing that stickiness permanently. My suggestion to you is with vehicles like this that are so valuable and so rare is to take that part out and send it to multiple companies. I'll put a list down below to the companies that I recommend. So in about a week to 10 days, what they're gonna do is respray that, but with the modern chemistry of today, so it's actually hardened and it will last the rest of the lifetime of the vehicle. I prefer doing that for two reasons. One, you're gonna keep the original part, and two, you're not gonna replace anything, so it's gonna be less expensive. The price varies from anywhere from $40 to a basic button all the way up to $500 if you're replacing all the vents themselves, but I do recommend you doing that. So with that in mind, we're gonna clean everything in here. There's one or two buttons in here that actually have the issue, but overall, this is pretty good. Why? Because it's been in storage, there's crazy low miles, and people haven't been getting in and out and leaving that grease and suntan lotion, etc. behind. So keep all of that in mind. I still love this car, so let's clean the interior and make this thing spectacular because I'm taking this for a ride later. First, I did a basic clean with lather and an interior brush, wiped it down, and during the wipe process, you can really see that this leather, this material is very parched. Next, I used the diffuser just to flush out the junk from behind and underneath the seats. And I did that because Dominic requested that, meaning when he was driving, there's just a lot of stuff coming out and going underneath his feet. So I made sure I took care of that. Then, once all the fabric was sticking up, I prepared it for steam cleaning. Now keep in mind that if you're working on a car that's a disaster, or you have tons of sand and dirt in the carpets, it's just gross, I recommend doing an initial vacuum first to avoid spraying dirt all over the place on your clean interior with a diffuser. So I used the diffuser here because it wasn't terrible. It was just enough that I can go in there and re-vacuum everything without a big deal. Then I vacuumed the lifted up dirt with the central vac. Now, a healthy vacuuming is not going to take you 3 minutes. It's probably going to be more like 15 to 20 minutes, especially if you're moving the seats forward and back and doing a thorough job. So enjoy the process. In this case, I'm wearing headphones just to drown everything out and just zone out. This is my favorite part of detailing. My least favorite is doing the glass. What do you guys like cleaning the most and the least? Leave me a note. I'm super curious about what the consensus says. Once vacuumed, I scrubbed the carpets with shag and our new wooden short hair brush. Now, this is my new favorite tool for interior carpets, leather seats, and of course, my daily shoe cleaning routine at home. Afterwards, with shag doing its thing, I steam clean the carpets and the mats. It's incredible what the reservoir looks like after cleaning a seemingly clean looking carpet. On the yellow Ferrari seatbelt patches, I used shag and the short hair block, then hit it with some steam before blotting it dry. It was a huge before and after difference. I personally think Ferrari should have this patch on all of their seatbelts, much the same as the Ferrari badge on the hood. It's a tasteful, elegant touch every time you buckle your seatbelt. I think they should do that. With everything now clean and dry, I added silk leather balm to the very, very dry and brittle leather. This is designed for older leather or seats that experience a lot of sun exposure and require restoration or a highly concentrated preventative measure. These seats in particular lack the moisture and suppleness of newer leather, so Dominic wanted to stop or at least slow the rate of further degradation. Once silk is massaged into the leather, let it sit for a minimum of 30 minutes or so before you start wiping. Now, because this one was just so parched, I let it sit overnight before buffing to a matte finish. With the interior now soaking up the balm, I applied Reflex Pro 2 to the paint and then Gillette Pro to the wheels. Before reinstalling the wheels, I wanted to clean up the gorgeous lug nuts with flux metal polish by hand before tightening down the wheels and calling it a day. All right, good morning, everybody. This is the start of day 2. Now, yesterday about midday, I had to take Brody back to the airport so that he could take his 22-hour flight back to Australia. So we miss him. Then I came back, and as you saw earlier, I put the balm on the seat, and I want to show you what it looks like in the morning. Now, I gave it overnight to do its thing, and this is pretty interesting here. Look at this. There's a particular spot that is a perfect example. You can see how it's a little bit shinier here and not as shiny here. And I didn't wipe any of this off because the Conley leather, which is really, really high-end leather, they have it in Bentleys and Rolls Royces, and in 1995, this was the leather to have. It still is today, matter of fact. But the point I'm making is you can see it's shiny here. I'm gonna go in and wipe all this off. The idea is it's kind of like a soaking wet, let's say t-shirt or towel. One section that's totally soaked and another one that's dry. The dry part is obviously gonna soak up a lot of the water if you were to dunk it in a bucket, let's say, and the wet part isn't gonna absorb anymore. That's a good thing here. This area is now full. This area I may have to hit again because it's dry. So there is different levels of parchness, dryness to the seat. So I let it sit overnight to let it go through that entire process. Now I'll wipe it down, add a few little bit of spots here and there where it's dry. And now this is gonna be fully moisturized. The elasticity of it is gonna be much better. And then obviously it's gonna prevent a lot of that future cracking from it being really, really dry. On the exhaust pipes and the emblems, I used Flux metal polish just to brighten up all the faded metal pieces. Then I cleaned the glass and the huge window etching with Obey, a squeegee, and some glass towels. Again, we're gonna talk about this window etching, absolutely crazy, before I put some mud tire dressing on as the last step. Okay, after the last little touches, the Ferrari is now done. It looks spectacular. Let's take this thing for a ride. This is super cool, and what a privilege to drive. Here we go, listen to that. This kind of gives me the same feeling as the R8, not quite, but that gated shifter is super cool. This one has a lot more length to it, so it just feels different and more special than the R8. The R8 has a little bit of a nubbier one, but it's right there. But this is what you pay for. This feeling right now, it's immediate. The anticipation of getting on the highways. Here we go. Woo! 375 horses? That's so Ferrari! Hey, good morning. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Come on in, see your baby.
Ooh, she looks good.
Right?
Good, good, good.
This thing is spectacular. Oh. Now, I've made a few posts on Instagram or whatever, and the people go, what's your favorite Ferrari? Yeah. I always say short of the F40. That's just like the Halo. Okay, fine. Okay. But of all the cars that you have, the 355 is the best. In yellow, interior spectacular, 6-speed, so on. So the big question is, who, what, when, where, how did you get this car?
Okay. So I've been chasing the perfect 355 forever. Not that any of them are perfect. They had their own issues, right. Everything that goes along with them. You know, this car's 30 years old. I found it out in Pennsylvania 6-8 months ago.
Really?
Yeah, it took forever to get to the deal on the car. So I got the deal on the car. I brought it here. I had the car serviced for the most part and got it working. We had a whole bunch of We had AC issues, we had alternator issues, tons of stuff. Ace, Tommy did all the work. Yep. And, so we got it to the point and I said, okay, let's, because we're not selling the car, we're keeping the car, we're driving the car. I said, let's let Tom do all his work and then bring it here because I knew the car was a disaster when it came in. I flipped the seat forward and just saw all the crap stuff and the leather and it was just a total mess. But, we found the car, we got to the right number on the car. It took a while to get to the right number. We got it here. I drove it a couple of times, fell in love with it completely. It's, it's as
sounds amazing when you're driving.
Probably one of the best sounding 8 cylinders most of the stuff.
Yes.
Right?
Yes,
just absolutely the best.
Especially with the top off. It's just like...
It's just, the car's visceral, right? It's just, that gated 6, it's like, I think, with the size of my feet or your feet, you need like driving shoes to drive this thing because the pedals are so close together. But it's a blast to drive. This is not an American car. This is a Euro spec car.
Oh.
Everything's in kilometers. So if you look on the car, it's got 8,000 kilometers on it. The car only has 5,000.
That makes more sense.
Right? So about 5,000 miles on it. So it was brought in years ago. It was completely repainted because they all suffered from the rot issue over here. all the 355s had trouble here.
Oh, nice.
The smart thing is they painted the whole car.
Yep.
You know, yeah, so they painted the whole car. They did a really good job on the paint, but you know, of course, it had, you know, its imperfections, and I saw in the clip where it had,
Yeah,
you know,
there was definitely something going on
some
there.
stuff in the hood.
But you gotta answer this. Everybody is asking, what is going on with this sort of, what is this, etched in? Is that the VIN, or like, what is
No.
this?
So back in the 90s, when car theft was really rampant in Europe, they etched all the cars, but they didn't etch them the way we etch them, you know, with the VIN, you know, really tiny.
Yeah, these are huge.
These are huge. Now, what I didn't understand is why the heck you'd have to do this in a Ferrari 355, right? Who's going to steal a window?
That's
Who's going to steal the glass?
Take that out, and then it's
Exactly. You know, such a useless endeavor to etch windows, but you know, that's what the insurance companies wanted 30 years ago. So that's what it did. What I found interesting was it has two different etch numbers in it. So it's got this, the AAU 87W, in the windshield and the two side windows, and then it's got this little one here on this window, and thank God there's not one on the back window.
Right.
Yeah, but that's what they did. Like when VIN etching, you know, became a thing here,
right,
it was already a thing in Europe. I think we just did a better job of it with putting it on the. I think on the body panels it would be infinitely more important than, hi, who wants this, you know, left glass for a Ferrari 355? It's not a Honda Accord.
I kind of think it's like kitschy now, you know.
It's fine. You know, it's another conversation piece when you take the car out. So when the car is seen in the wild, they'll be like, oh, that's the car Larry did because it has the etching.
Yeah, I don't need to sign this one.
You don't need to sign this car.
We're good to go.
It's absolutely good to go.
Well, enjoy the car. The thing's amazing. Have a good day.
Thank you, sir.
It's beautiful outside. Got the T-top. Do you want that on or off? What do you want to do?
Gonna have to put it on. Gotta go to work.
Yeah, okay. All right, well, enjoy.
Thanks.
Wow. That is the coolest Ferrari ever. That's pretty neat. He's got really cool cars. Now we got this one, 430 miles on a 430. How ironic. Okay, coming up very soon, we have the lowest mile F430 convertible with 480 original miles. In fact, this is the car Dominic dropped off to pick up the 355. Then I have an E-Type Jag that's been sitting here for over 30 years. Unbelievable. As always, guys, thanks for watching and subscribing, and I'll see you soon.